All right, so are you ready? Get ready to really get ready to dive deep into something. It's something that's, well, it's about relationships. But I'm warning you, it might make some people blush a little.
Ooh, sounds a bit spicy.
It is, kind of, yeah. We're going to be talking about human relationships and specifically this idea of monogamy. Like, is it really natural for us?
The age-old question.
Right. And, we're going to be using Sex at Dawn as our guide. It's a book by Christopher Ryan and Cacilda Jethá. And let me tell you, they don't hold back.
I've heard it's quite the eye-opener.
It is. It really is. This book kind of throws everything we think we know about love and relationships right out the window. It uses all these different fields too: evolutionary biology, anthropology, cultural analysis, like the whole shebang.
Sounds like they're taking a pretty comprehensive approach, so what's the main argument they're making?
Well, basically, they're saying that maybe, just maybe, humans aren't naturally monogamous. Like, it's not necessarily hardwired into us.
Whoa, that's a pretty bold claim. What makes them think that? I mean, monogamy is pretty much the standard model for relationships in most cultures, right?
Yeah, that's true. But what if that's like a relatively recent development? What if for most of human history, things look totally different?
Hmm. I'm intrigued. What kind of evidence do they present to back that up?
Well, they talk a lot about this idea of an evolutionary mismatch. Like, imagine trying to run software designed for, I don't know, Windows 95 on the latest MacBook.
I see where you're going with this.
Right. It's going to be buggy. It's not going to work right. And they're saying maybe some of the struggles we have in relationships today are like that. Like, we're trying to force our ancient instincts into this modern mold of monogamy, and it's just not a perfect fit.
That's a fascinating analogy. So tell me more about this ancient software, the ancient instincts. What were relationships like way back in the day before Tinder and all that?
Well, picture this, right? You've got these small groups of hunter-gatherers, always on the move. Everyone's contributing to survival. Resources are shared. Child rearing is this communal effort. And get this, paternity isn't always a clear-cut thing.
Wait, shared paternity? You mean they didn't know who the father was?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It wasn't this big deal like it is today.
That's wild. But I guess if you think about it, it does kind of challenge all the jealousy and possessiveness we often see in relationships these days, right?
Totally. And that's kind of the point the authors are making. They're saying that in these early societies, the focus was on group cohesion, on survival. It wasn't about tracing strict genetic lineage. It was about raising kids collectively.
Okay, that's starting to make sense. But if things were so fluid back then, how did we end up with monogamy as the dominant model?
Well, they argue that a big turning point was the advent of agriculture.
Agriculture, how does that tie into relationships?
Well, think about it. With farming comes land ownership, inheritance, and suddenly there's this need to ensure the legitimacy of heirs.
Ah, I'm starting to see the connection.
Right. So controlling female sexuality becomes important for maintaining power structures, and monogamy starts to get institutionalized.
So it's like love and relationships got tangled up with economics and power dynamics.
Exactly. It's not just a romantic fairy tale. There's all this other stuff going on.
Right, right. So is that the whole story? Or are there other factors at play?
Well, the book also gets into some pretty interesting biological evidence. For example, they talk about how human males have relatively large testicles compared to our primate cousins.
The testicle size thing, huh? I remember reading about that.
Yeah, it sounds a bit strange at first, but they explain it in a way that actually makes sense.
Go on, enlighten me.
Okay, so large testicles are often associated with species where females mate with multiple partners.
Ah, sperm competition. The more sperm you produce, the better your chances of passing on your genes.
Exactly. So basically, the authors are suggesting that our ancestors might have been a bit more, shall we say, open-minded when it came to mating.
That makes sense from an evolutionary perspective. So we're not just talking about cultural norms, but our actual evolutionary history influencing our relationships today. That's pretty mind-blowing.
It is, but there's more, of course. There's the whole cultural layer, too.
Oh, right. Culture. That's a huge part of it, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, think about all the messages we get from religion, media, even our families, about what a proper relationship should look like. All those things shape our expectations around love, sex, and partnership.
It's like we inherit a whole set of beliefs about relationships without even realizing it.
Exactly. And that's kind of what this book is trying to get us to do,
Yeah.
to think critically about where our beliefs come from. But, some people might be wondering, are they saying we should all ditch monogamy and go back to, like, free love?
I was wondering the same thing. What's the takeaway here?
Well, they're not really advocating for any specific relationship model. They just want us to question whether monogamy is truly the only path to happiness.
So it's more about asking questions than giving all the answers. Which makes sense because this is a complex topic with a lot of different perspectives.
Right. And of course, a book this bold is going to spark some debate.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are definitely people who disagree with their conclusions. Some critics say they oversimplify things or that they're cherry-picking evidence.
Yeah, there are definitely valid criticisms out there, but even those criticisms are interesting. It just goes to show how deeply ingrained our beliefs about relationships are.
It's a conversation that's been going on for centuries, I'm sure.
Definitely. So I guess to kind of sum things up, monogamy might not be as ancient as we think. Our evolutionary past could be playing a bigger role in our love lives than we realize, and culture is a huge factor shaping our relationship ideals.
That's a great summary. And it really makes you think, if human sexual behavior is so influenced by culture and context, what does that mean for the future of relationships?
Whoa. Yeah, I mean, are we going to see a shift towards more open or fluid models becoming more common? I don't know. That's a big question. Definitely something to ponder.
Food for thought, for sure.
It is. Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us. This book was definitely a wild ride.
My pleasure. It's been a fascinating discussion.
It has. It really has. And to all our listeners out there, keep thinking critically about these things, challenge your assumptions, and don't be afraid to have these conversations, even if they make you blush a little bit.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely. All right, until next time, everyone, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Happy exploring.